Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tuesdays in the Shop. I am Andrea.
I'm Yvette.
Are
Oh,
you
Jen, you say you're Jen.
going to introduce yourself, Jen?
Oh, hi, I'm Jen.
And we're Gotham Quilts. I am coming from our new space that we haven't really come up with a name yet.
Space, I think,
The
is what we
space.
ended up calling it. Yeah.
Yeah. Jen and Yvette are at their homes, and I see we have Georgia and Maryland and people joining us from all over the place. Thank you for joining us. And we're coming back, and after our 2-week hiatus from going to Quiltcon, Quiltcon was great, but it was exhausting. We got back last Monday night, and we were just too exhausted, and probably wouldn't have made much sense if we had tried to do a video. So we decided we would skip it and see you tonight. And tonight we're going to tell you about QuiltCon, what we saw, how we thought it went, what we bought, what we liked. There was a lot of really good quilts, as there always are. So should we just jump into our slideshow?
Okay, so here we go. Yes, it worked. Woo!
So this is the convention floor. This year it was in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I had not been there before, but it's your typical convention center. But I think they did a good job, and it was the highest attended QuiltCon that they have ever had. So that was really cool.
Remember, who was it that told us the number of one-day passes? Somebody came along to the booth. I don't remember who it was who said this to us. And they told us that before the first day, they had sold 10,000 one-day passes. So that means people who didn't register for the whole show and are just, kind of like casual attendees, 10,000 of them.
I think it was 25,000 attendees total, which was the record that beat Atlanta's record of 17,000. So that's a significant increase. But yeah, it was great. The first 2 days that we were in our booth were packed, just completely like wall to wall. It was great. We barely got out of our booth for the first couple days. It wasn't till Saturday or Sunday, I think, till we actually got to walk around and see the quilts.
Yeah.
But we got to see a lot of people. There were so many people that stopped by our booth and said hi, and that they had been to our store in New York, and it was so lovely to see so many people. It was really great, and thank you guys for coming and stopping by.
Speaking of the booth.
Yes, so now you're looking at pictures of our booth. It's me and Yvette and Jen and Raina. If anybody remembers Raina from the store, she came out to help us, which was so much fun. It was so good to see her, and it was like no time had passed. It was great. So this was after we set up on the first day. You can still there's cardboard boxes and stuff, but that was our booth. And it was a combination of Gotham Quilts and Threadsome, which is our sort of pattern line for handwork and particularly wool applique and things like that. So like a third of the booth was Threadsome and about 2/3 of the booth was Gotham. And it went, I thought it looked really good.
Yeah, we'll have more to tell you guys about Threadsome soon. We launched a bunch of new patterns at the show.
Oh, yeah.
And we're getting ready to actually tell everybody about it, but maybe
stay tuned for that.
Maybe the week after that.
Yeah, we have several things planned, all kinds of new stuff planned to show you. So
we always have so many ideas, right? So it's like there's always stuff coming.
And now that Quiltcon is over, we actually have time to implement some of these ideas.
Maybe, right. Here's more pictures we took of the booth, and my favorite part of the booth, I think, was this huge amount. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. This huge amount of solids that we had. This wall was just gorgeous, all colors and like every bundle you could want. And we now are carrying color cards for the 2 rounds of solids that we carry. We're going to talk more about next week when we're
Right.
talking about solids, specifically in the live. And then on the
We-
left is Andrea's newest design, Quota.
which we'll also talk about later tonight.
Yep.
But yeah, as Yvette said, we have added several solids recently. We carry the entire line of the Riley Blake confetti cottons and the Art Gallery pure solids, which
Yep.
we haven't really made an announcement. They're on our website already. You can already get them. We haven't made a formal announcement, but we're going to do a whole video next Tuesday and tell you all about those then.
Yep. All about solids next week.
Yeah.
And I liked this corner of the booth too. It was like really colorful. The
Yeah.
lighting is always terrible at every quilt show. So it's like lots of shadows and everything, but you
Yeah.
get it, right? It was like bright and happy and cozy.
Yeah. And I mean, we learned a lot doing this. And
Yes,
that's
we
one of the
did.
things we learned is bring lighting.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Jen?
It was gorgeous, even with the crappy lighting. I thought.
It was.
Yeah. The next section of the slideshow, we picked some quilts that we saw at the show. We couldn't possibly show you every quilt that was on the show. I think they had 250 quilts up there.
I don't remember that statistic. I don't remember reading that one, but yeah, it was a lot.
It was so many quilts. I don't know if there is a place online that you can go see all of them. And I just realized that our little pictures are interfering with seeing this. So I'm going to change the layout.
No.
Okay, there you go. So this is some of Andrea's favorite show quilts. Did you want to talk about why you
Sure.
picked some of these?
And yeah, there were so many really good ones that these are actually just a couple. The top left in this was one of the Wyndham Challenge quilts, but I love the composition, the circles and the curves and the stripes. And what is very hard to see in this picture is that the binding is pieced like 1-inch stripes. So she pieced 1-inch pieces to make her binding, and it was magnificent. Who was that designer again, Jen?
Marissa Wilhelmi.
So
And
I got to meet her.
She's on Instagram. She's fantastic, and she's constantly saying she doesn't think her stuff is very good.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, she's amazing.
I thought you liked this one because it had so many stripes and you love stripes.
Well, that is part of it, but that binding literally just blew me away. Like that's the kind of, yeah, I mean, that's a Quiltcon level, like go all in kind of thing. The one in the center, the colors are nice. The way it's got the light and dark to give you that like 3-dimensional feel. And then
the one in the center is a pattern that she's selling.
Oh, it is? Oh, I didn't know that.
I've seen a quilt along going. Jen, do you remember the name of this one?
Is that Jenny Papper Saxton?
I don't know.
I'll find it and I'll put it in the comments.
I could zoom in and read the.
I wonder if I can zoom in. Let's see. No,
I guess I can pull up
definitely
my
can't.
photos. Well, whatever. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, because I remember seeing this pattern and I really loved how it's so conducive to doing a lot of quilting inside it.
Oh yeah.
So I think she had like a sew along for it recently.
And then the last one, the blue one on the right, this one was gorgeous.
Oops, sorry, I clicked by accident.
And this blue ombre from, light at the bottom, dark to the top. And I can't remember if this was appliqued. I should, you know what? I'll just pull it up on my phone and I'll look at it and tell you exactly what it is.
Good idea.
And then I can tell you whose it is too. Because I should really be doing that, giving these people credit.
I love that blue and white one. That's the kind that, like, I always love looking at them, but
This is so much work. Yeah,
it is so much work. It's pieced. So it's every single one of those circles and curves and triangles is pieced. This was in the piecing category called White Babbles by Irina Timich. Oh, she's Russian. Irina's Timo something. I can't quite read it in this small type on the side, but it was amazing. And you don't get anywhere near the detail in this small picture. but yeah, gorgeous. And the bottom left, that one was humongous. That was
Yeah.
at least a king size quilt. And there's actually a detail picture on the next slide. This was in the modern traditionalism by Donna Silberto. Yeah, but the colors, these are my colors. This aqua and blue with the green thrown in there. I just loved it.
Yeah.
And the quilting was really nice. It was a lot of straight line quilting in different directions.
You probably didn't mean to do this, but a lot of your favorites are orange and blue.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
I
see
know.
that?
Of course they are. And then the bottom right is that one I thought was really cool. When you were actually looking at it in person, you didn't get the circles as much. You really had to take a step back, and in the picture, it really pops. It seems so obvious in the picture that those red circles are there, but when you're standing right in front of it, you really didn't see it, or at least I didn't. Which I just thought was really interesting, and I love pink and orange together.
So that one was kind of like an optical illusion then.
Yeah, and the layering effect, I thought was really cool. So this one, the top left, this was sort of like a Scandinavian feel, and I just loved the colors. Again, the pink and orange red with that pop of blue. I like that palette. I thought that was nice.
It looks like Orla Kiley.
It does. It does look a lot like Orla Kiley, who I love, which I'm sure is also partly why I liked that one. The one in the center, again, the colors are just like right up my alley. And with the curves and then the striped curves, I thought that was cool. The triangle
one to me looks like it's upside down.
Interesting. I didn't get that.
I don't know why, but I look at it and I'm like, I feel like it's upside down.
The triangle on the right was amazing. It had so much detail. It was in the miniature category, so it was only, 24 inches wide. So it was small, and obviously the shape is non-traditional, and we don't see quilts that shape very often, which I thought was cool. But the texture and the detail in that quilt was so amazing. There was some of those little triangles are actually floating on the top, being held down by long threads, like long floating threads, which again, you can't get much from this picture, but it was really, really fantastic.
I noticed a couple of quilts had that long floating thread detail, and I don't think I've ever seen that on quilts before. What we mean by this is that they are quilted like a normal, stitch, and then there's like a jump stitch.
Yeah.
So you get one big piece of thread for some amount of, 2 inches, 4 inches, and then the stitching continues after that.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that as a technique, but I saw it on several quilts at the show.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't remember seeing it on other ones. I saw other techniques with thread on other ones. That was the only one I saw with that particular technique, but you looked at some that I don't think I got to see. Yeah. So,
and I always pay attention to the quilting the most.
Yeah, right. And then the last one on the bottom right, again, the colors are my colors, and the stripes and the kind of optical illusion thing going on, I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
So those were some of my favorites.
I look at this one and the first thing I look at is the quilting, because this one has just all over quilting. But then if you look in the center, she did some other thing in the middle.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really nice effect.
I honestly don't remember the quilting on that one.
So here are my favorites. This one on the left was my absolute favorite in the entire show. I could pull up who made this one because I have the picture of the.
Yeah, I do too here.
The name. I don't remember if this person won a ribbon or not. Let's see if I can find the thing. And what really drew me to this one was that it's called On the Verge, and it's made by Tara Evans. And what really drew me to this one, not only does it look like a topology map, which it really isn't, but she actually did all this quilting, I think, on a domestic, because there was zigzag stitches every so often mixed in. and your long arm can't do that. So and I also thought that the color range was really interesting. Like this pop of black right in the middle is so surprising for these colors. And the color on my screen is actually pretty accurate to what I remember it looking like. Whether my memory of what it looked like is right, couldn't tell you. But
Was
what I
this the
middle,
one where the quilting line every once in a while there'd be a couple inches of zigzag, like
Yeah.
it would go straight? Okay.
yeah. And you and I stared at this one for a minute because both of us were looking at the quilting, and it was like, what are these zigzags doing in here? But
Yeah,
it actually
that was
worked
really
really
cool.
well. This one in the middle is, of course, by Sherry Lynn Wood, and this one won a ribbon in the improv category. The thing that really struck me about this one is that again, I always am looking at the quilting, right? So if you look at this line here, can you see my mouse moving, or is it too subtle?
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
a
yeah,
line
nice.
here that is just quilted in. So she is repeating the shape of the piecing in an empty space. So it's almost like an echo kind of a thing. So like same with this one, same with this one. These quilting lines are not stitching in the ditch, but this quilting line is stitching in the ditch, and so is this one. And I don't know that I've ever seen her do quite this combination before. She has a tendency to she hand quilts all her quilts as far as I know, and she always used that like big stitch hand quilting vibe or look. But in general, she quilts like an abstract improv shape on top of the piecing. And I think that this might be the first time that I really noticed her using the quilting with the quilting lines and stitching in the ditch, and then using these like I don't even know what the right word is, but like she's adding more detail to the piecing by using the quilting to add to the shape as opposed to adding another shape. Oh, my cat's saying hi. Of course, this is what a cat does when you're on camera, right? This one on the right, it was hilarious, first of all. Like this was in the applique category. But the thing that really struck me about this one is that she used prints. Like all these lettuces, I don't know if lettuces is the right word. Those are actually print fabric, and you don't usually see applique used, or rather prints used when you're doing like detailed applique like this. And I also just love the humor of this gigantic hamburger quilt, right?
And it was big.
It was big, yeah. This one, I loved the colors that she used, and I also loved that it was a simple block repeated over and over again, but there's a tiny variation in each one. So you can see that they don't all line up exactly the same. They're roughly lined up, but like this one's facing up more, and some of them are like more vertical. And just that tiny detail like really helps your eye move. Like I'd stared at this one for a long time. And then this picture came out really terrible. It's like a too overly exposed, I think is the right word, like too many shadows or whatever. But when I came to the show this year, I was like pretty set on buying a quilt. For those of you who don't know, at most quilt shows, when you submit your quilt, you almost always have the option to say that you would sell your quilt. And that's part of how the quilt shows finance the shows, is they keep a portion of that money. At Quiltcon, you can set your price, whatever price you want, or you can say it's not for sale. And of the quilts I looked at, most of them said not for sale. And then some of them were like $6,000 because the person who made them is already famous, and that's what her going price is. But some people's are more affordable, especially because there are some quilts that are like this big, right? So this pink one on the bottom, the reason I'm explaining all of that is I love pink. Everybody knows I love pink and orange. Plus I like log cabins. I like small, and this fits on my wall because I live in a studio apartment, or well, I don't anymore. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment now, but I'm so used to saying studio apartment, right? So I bought this quilt. So I'm gonna real quick look. I'm so excited. I have
That's
a
so
piece
cute.
of art.
Yeah.
Cool.
She signed it Oh, it's backwards because my video is flipped, but SML036, which I'm sure
No,
means what?
that's the number it was in the show. I have
Oh,
I have the
it's
same.
underneath there. You're right. You're right. You're right. Hold
Yeah,
on.
mine was
didn't
a
think
miniature. I
to
was
check
Min 029.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Hold on.
It's nice. I couldn't tell until you held it up that it has that secondary star pattern in the log cabin. Like the oranges make that star.
Yeah, it's so
Oh,
pretty.
yeah.
Striking.
Like I really like it. And can you see the quilting on it?
Mm.
It has this like big stitch quilting, and the centers being black, or it might actually be navy blue. But anyway, I'm going to pull off their temporary label so we can see her.
Yeah, I
actual
think
label.
they do that so that when they're my guess is they do that to cover up the label, the name on the label while they're judging it.
Right, so that they don't know whose it is.
Yeah, because
the cat's back.
Mine came back with that on it.
And I just didn't think that through before I said that out loud. So yeah, here's the real label. And this quilter's name, this quilt was named Pink Loves Orange, and the quilter is Teresa Fine Millies from Aurora, Illinois. And now I have a piece of art that was hanging in a quilt shed. And it's just the right size. I was really happy that I got to buy one and support people and, encourage quilt shows to keep going.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps, I think. So those were my 5 favorites. And one of them I bought. Here's Jen.
So my favorite. So on the left, this one is called Gatekeeper, and it's by Casey Engel. And I really liked the texture on this one. Usually I go crazy for machine quilting. That used to be my favorite thing, and now I'm more hand quilting. But this one is tied, which I don't usually see at quilt shows. No. And then there's pin tucks.
A lot of them don't allow just tied quilts. Yeah.
Right. I think there may have been more quilting on it too. I didn't take enough time to really sink into the quilts like I used to. We were just so busy, and I had such tunnel vision about wanting to work. But the texture on this one was just amazing, and I really liked it. And I liked that it was so unique to the show.
Yeah, and like she did the pleating, like the fabric thing, and then put a grid of knots on top. It's really unusual looking.
It really did stand out among all of the quilts as being very different.
Yep.
Yeah. So the second one is Nightlife by Laurice Earle. And I just loved the improv thing and the fact that we're from New York, and it just really caught my attention, and I really liked that. And I've been thinking about a quilt doing something with buildings in perspective, and this one really just called to me. So I liked it. It was fun, and I love improv, but like the controlled improv too is fun. And the last one, as I came around the corner, I was so excited. It looked just like my friend, somebody I met at Quilting by the Lake, and we hit it off, and it's Lori Paquin, and it's her quilt. I thought, wow, this really looks like something Lori would have made, and it was Lori. So I really like that. And I've seen her work, and when you spend a week watching somebody put something up on the design wall and then engineer it together, it's really fun. And I didn't get that experience with this, but this is composition 2. I bet you the one that I watched her do was composition 1. But the big shapes and the skinny lines, I just thought it was really cool.
How does she do those tiny lines? How are the tiny lines made?
So that's all improv. Like, so you kind of layer the colors and cut. I mean, I think I didn't watch her because I was also making my own thing, which is not finished after 3 years. But typically you layer the curves, you cut them, and then you stitch them together, and then you kind of have to press and work to make them nice and flat. And Lori's work is always, the 2 quilts that I've seen have just been amazing, and this one was just so cool. And I really like her big shapes and her limited color palette. So
yeah,
this one
also doesn't look like any other quilt.
Yeah, that's true too, and it was brighter in person.
Yeah. The reds are more of a real red.
And there's blue. That's hard.
And like acid green.
Yeah.
I wish the lighting at these shows was better because we're always complaining about how bad the lighting is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we took pictures of several of the Wyndham Artisan Cotton Challenge, partly because we carry the Wyndham cotton. We really like this. This is not a solid. This is a cross weave. So think like a shot cotton, but not as lightweight as the cave shot cottons. It's a pleasure to work with, and it's so soft, and the colors are gorgeous.
Yeah.
So every year, Quiltcon they work with a manufacturer to do a challenge that is fabric based. So the manufacturer will pick whatever fabric line or group of fabrics or whatever, and members of the guild can submit quilts to this category specifically, but they can only use the fabrics that were chosen for the challenge. Even the binding can't be a different fabric, right? So in this year, I think was it 5 colors?
It was 5, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were 5 beautiful colors, but personally, I thought they were a little difficult to make work
They
together.
were kind of weird together, yeah.
And so these people pulled it off. Like they made it work, which is awesome.
And you don't have to use all 5. So like the one in
Right.
the middle, you can see she didn't use the bright green.
Right.
And the bright green is the one that I thought was the hardest to use with the others because it was this really shocking, intense apple green.
Yeah.
And the other colors were a little bit more sophisticated in comparison. I think it's interesting that 3 of these have the light blue as the background.
Yes, I think that's interesting too. And the one on the top left, those are pieced stripes. super, super tiny piece stripes.
That quilt must be like able to stand up straight.
Probably.
Yeah.
It wasn't very big, but it was a lot of stripes.
Pretty cool. I thought we had another page of these. One thing that I wanted to say to everybody who's watching is if you've ever wanted to get a quilt into a quilt show, Quiltcon maybe isn't the best one because it is really, really competitive. They get like something like 10 quilts for every slot that they can put in. But these challenges where it's the more limited options, they can be the best option for submitting a quilt if you've never submitted a quilt to a show before, because it is so limited what you can do that people will try to submit and then they get stuck. So they don't end up getting, you're only competing against other ones who are in that category. You're not competing with every quilt that's being submitted. So it can be a good way if you had it in your, mind that you might want to start submitting to shows. The special exhibitions that are in most quilt shows can be an easier way to get in.
Yeah. And then this was something that I noticed, when I was just taking pictures of the quilts that I liked, that this sort of bubble thing going on. And I don't know if it's a real, I don't know if it's like an upcoming trend or if it's like a fluke. But these really kind of came together for me as like bubbly and sort of yellow submarine kind of looks, which I thought was nice. It breaks up the rigidity of a lot of the block-based designs, and just brings something a little bit different.
Yeah. I think it's amazing.
The colors
you were definitely drawn to colors too. Yeah. I think it's amazing that these 3 quilts are not the same person because they look like they could be.
I know, right?
Person, right.
It's interesting to watch curves become more and more popular as more people realize that they should give it a try, and then they're not impossible.
Yeah. And the way they've used those curves, I think, is really effective in these.
Yeah.
The one in the middle is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
That's a really good composition.
So my eye, of course, goes immediately to the quilting, right? So this one has an all over wave quilt, like the whole thing. So you really see the piecing. This one, she did layered quilting. So like here's like stripes, but then she puts circles, sort of like ghost shapes. Krista Withers, who used to be a long armor like 10 years ago, was my favorite quilter. And she named these things ghost shapes. It was like when you make a shape in the quilting that isn't in there from the piecing, which is exactly the thing I pointed out about Sherry Linwood's quilt, right?
Yep. Yeah, I didn't even notice the quilting on these.
Yeah, that often happens when Andrea and I go somewhere. Is she's looking at the piecing and the colors, and I'm looking at the quilting. It's like we are getting a very different
Perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Even though we're looking at the exact same product, right? And then what do we have left? Oh yeah, so hooray! Andrea got a quilt into Quiltcon again. I say
And the
again
magazine.
because so the first time we submitted to Quiltcon magazine was in 2016, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yep, and by we I mean she, because she's the designer. And we got that quilt into that show. It was called Kupka, and you may remember that that's a pattern that we sell. And now here's quilt number 2.
Yep, I'm 2. So this was the picture on the left is kind of coming down the escalator in the convention center. You could see it, which people were telling me this because our booth was all the way on the opposite side of the convention center, so I never took this elevator until I specifically did it to get this picture. But I thought that was kind of a cool picture.
Yeah, this picture is perfect.
Some of the quilts around it. I didn't get any ribbons. I didn't expect to, but I was just happy to have it in the show. And it is right here.
Yay!
Not move my chair for some reason, but this is Quota, Quota. Quota and Kupka kind of sound alike.
That's true, and I didn't think about that.
Which I didn't do that on purpose. But so this is the quilt in person, and it's really big piecing. Do you want to switch the picture?
Oh, sorry, you're right. I should.
Or put another picture up. Yeah, so here we go. Let me move this chair. So this is it. We've got really big half square triangles and then half rectangle triangles up at the top and put together. So it's kind of a weird grid. But the piecing is big, and then you can really kind of have fun with the quilting. So in this particular case, this was one where I designed the quilting to go with the piecing, and Yvette told me not to do that. She's like, that's too much. Don't do that. And I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. But then, of course, she had to help me actually implement it to get it flat and things like that, because there's a lot of...
because if you do that kind of quilting... it might actually be easier to see the quilting if I share the picture.
Oh, okay.
So on the next page, we have these 2 pictures are the 2 colorways that we're offering this kit in. And I think it's easier to see what we mean by the quilting on this, because she quilted it to death with
I've seen much heavier quilted.
Oh yeah, but that's the
but there is a lot of
right? You quilt it to death is the term. But different densities of quilting is what makes it so difficult to make the quilt be flat.
So there's wide stripes in one corner next to really tight stripes, and then all the curves and all the circles going on. So it was more of a challenge than I expected.
But so if you ever take one of my quilting classes, it's one of the key things that I teach is that you can mix and match the density. Like, not the whole quilt has to be the same density, but it has to be almost the same density. So if you have a smaller bit that's tighter, you have to compensate with a piece that's wider. Otherwise, it won't stay square. So with this quilt, because the design of the quilting was specifically done, we ended up adding more quilting in a specific spot to make the quilt actually be more even than the original plan for how we were going to quilt it was like more too uneven, the density of the quilting. And so getting the finished quilt to be square was going to be kind of impossible.
But we did
add a little bit of quilting. Yep.
Yeah, I think it came out really nice. I'm really happy with it. It is very bright. So for people that are maybe not into the bright colors as much, I came up with a second colorway. We're calling the original one Kandinsky, and the bluer one Magritte. And yeah, totally different, but I love both of them. The bluer one is like a more moody and sophisticated and I don't know.
And
It's
probably goes with more people's houses.
probably,
living
yeah. It's blues and grays, and then a pop of that kind of yellow green that we love. But it's just really really nice.
Yeah, Jen made the blue one, the Magritte one. And we originally said to Jen, please quilt it not very much because we wanted to show the quilt without that much quilting so that if someone
Yeah.
is not into the
Yeah.
quilting
Make
part,
it approachable.
right, like
Yeah,
so
well,
they
it's all
wouldn't get
straight
intimidated.
lines.
And then she just fell in love with the negative space. So anybody who's watching
Yeah.
the quilting, you know
It's
what this
hand quilting in there.
you see the space and you want to put stuff in it. So
Yeah.
Couldn't
it came out
stop.
really nice.
This one's
Yeah.
cool. Nope, not that way, this way.
And she mixed machine quilting with hand quilting.
Hand quilting. Yeah, I think that one came out really nice too. She actually hasn't finished quilting it.
No.
We can do that later. That's okay.
So one thing that I wanted to make sure we mention is you may have seen or may have been thinking, I'm going to put Andrea back actually, like this is not a very big quilt, right? We did this on purpose. This is not meant to be a baby quilt. This is meant to be like a poster that you hang on your wall or a piece of art that you hang on your wall. It's 40, what is the measurement again? I forgot, 40 by 48?
It's like 46 by 48 or something like that.
And we did this on purpose. Usually all of us tend to make quilts that go on beds or quilts that you snuggle with on the couch, right? But we set out to submit to Quiltcon a quilt that was intended to be art because that is the angle. Quiltcon has a lot more art as opposed to like usable quilts, right?
Much, very much so.
So if you're looking at this size thinking like, why would I make this? The idea is you would hang it on your wall. And you can have fun with the quilting if you want to, or you could just do it real simple.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, we are going to be doing a quilt along for the design. I'll put the poster back up because I don't think, do I have another?
I'd like to interject that the circles are applique.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Who's
Good
tempted,
point.
but doesn't like. I know my mom was like, I kind of want to make it, but I don't want to mess with piecing it because she knows that we can, and we do sometimes. I personally make things that are overly difficult. This one is
the
not.
two of them are always complicating.
I usually do that, but in this case, no. It is machine applique with fusible backing, keeping it simple.
Yeah,
Andrea
it's
did
raw
have
edge.
nursery.
But because this quilt does have the circles and the applique and such big pieces and the half square rectangles and that sort of thing, it might be intimidating to some people. So we are going to have a sew along starting in May so that we can all make it together, and we'll have tips and tricks and ways to make it a little bit easier, and also show you how to draw the circles, share some tools with you that make it a lot easier, a lot of that kind of stuff. So if you are interested in making this quilt, either in the colors we have in our kits or completely different fabric, then you should join us for that.
Stay tuned. We're gonna actually, I can
more information coming soon.
I'll put a QR code up on the screen in a second. For now, I'm gonna put the QR code for the kits. We already have the kits in stock and cut and ready to ship. And we mentioned it in passing, but this pattern is in the Quiltcon magazine. So if you were at the show and you picked up a Quiltcon 2024 magazine, you have these instructions already. You could pick your own colors, do your own version. If you don't yet have the magazine, we do have some left, and it's out of print already. So you can't buy it anywhere else that I know of. You might be able to find it in like a checkout counter somewhere, but like even the Modern Quilt Guild themselves, who knows how many copies in their own booth, by day 3 they had sold out. So if you want to make this, you do need the magazine, and we have them. So you could buy the kit from us with the magazine or without the magazine if you have already bought the magazine, because if you were at Quiltcon, you might have bought the magazine. And I'm also going to put up the QR code to sign up for the quilt along. So we're going to run it inside our Gotham Quilts community website like we do anything else that's virtual. And we're going to have videos and we're going to have giveaways.
Yeah, some fun giveaways, a prize for finishing, and some other fun stuff.
Sorry, I'm adding the QR code right now.
And if you do want to do this quilting where with the circle kind of radiating out, which I think came out really nice, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
We will show you how to do that. But you don't have to do that.
I
Yeah,
just
once you
swapped.
see it, you just I need it. I was like, oh, that's why my circle area is not quilted. I was like, well, how do I do that? I
Yeah.
got to talk to Andrea. And
Yeah.
we were so busy.
Yeah, exactly. We barely had time to talk.
So I just put up a different QR code if you'd like to sign up for the list to be told when the quilt-along starts. You just go to that page and dump your email address in that form, and that will add you to our email list, but with a tag that says you're interested in the quilt-along. Are we calling it a sew-along or a quilt-along?
I thought it was a sew along, but I don't know exactly what the difference
Me
is.
either.
It's
So
like it both ways.
Yeah, I guess we'll use both terms. And don't worry, if you're already on our email list, you don't get 2 emails instead of 1. It's just that people who sign up for the quota sew along will get extra emails that are for quota, and everyone on our email list gets our normal emails.
I think we decided where it's going to kick off May 1st. So you have
May
plenty
1st.
of time to get your fabrics and
yes.
and everything.
Yep, exactly.
And I'll definitely be sending an email to the regular email list to tell them that we're doing this.
I think it would be beautiful in yarn dyes, like the artisan cuts. That if I had had more time, that is what I would have made the original out of. But I had to use fabric that we had at the store already because I didn't have a lot of time.
Right. And I was thinking that, because I'm going to make one during the quilt along, maybe. And I was thinking I kind of want to do it in all one color. So like shades of pink or shades of purple.
Interesting.
So monochromatic.
I like that
and
idea.
Just use the value to differentiate the pieces.
That sounds pretty cool.
So we're looking forward to seeing what everybody else comes up with our new pattern.
Oh, I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be so fun.
Yep. Anyway, do we have any announcements or housekeeping?
Not
stuff?
that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think maybe we might be done.
We do have an announcement.
Are we going to
Let's
talk
check the
about our
chat.
improv retreat later, or like for
We
anybody
could
who's in
remind
the
people.
quilting, we're going
Yeah,
to
we
have
could
an
remind
improv
them.
retreat in April.
Yes. So that's coming up. That'll be really fun. We're going to use Sherry Linwood's book. So if you liked the quilt that Yvette showed, that's sort of the style, but it doesn't have to look like that. Improv can look like almost anything. So that's looking like fun, I think.
Yeah, and
I'm
we're
looking
going to
forward to
close sign up soon, but not quite yet. So you still have time to sign up.
Yep, and we will be back next Tuesday to talk about our solids and all kinds of new stuff that goes with those solids, which is also really exciting. As Yvette said, we have color cards available for both the confetti cottons and the Art Gallery Pure solids. And the color cards are so key. We're all ordering things online nowadays. You can't tell what color it is on the screen. And if you have the color card that shows you exactly what that fabric is going to be, what the name is, you can then go online and order it and know what you're going to get.
Also, they're just such a pleasure to flip through. Like I open those color cards just to look at this color. Oh, look at this color. Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a color card junkie, but then like if I need to match something, I need to know what color it is. Right. So it's pretty important. And part of the reason we chose these solids is because we can get and sell you color cards. There are some brands that don't, they only provide color cards to vendor or, to stores. or they don't print them. They don't make them at all. Sometimes it's just a catalog with printed
Yes.
colors.
You all might be
So-
surprised to find out that sometimes we're buying inventory
Yep.
based on a printed out picture of the fabric and not
Yeah,
a
lot
swatch of the
times.
actual fabric. Even when we see vendors in person and they bring us
Yes.
their samples, sometimes it's not on paper. I'm sorry, sometimes
Right.
it is on paper, not on fabric.
Right.
Which
Absolutely.
sometimes that means when it shows up, it's not the same color.
I mean, they do try. They obviously have very high quality printers and do as best they can to match the colors, but it's not exactly the same. But yeah, that is pretty common. But as quilters and people that use solids and know that color is important, that was really important for us to be able to offer to you.
But that's for next week.
Yes, we'll talk more about that. I just had to slip that in.
Yep. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back next Tuesday at 6:30 regular time. We're back on our normal calendar, and we'll see you every week at 6:30 on Tuesday. We're Gotham Quilts. Oh, and by the way, sometimes there'll be 3 of us now.
Oh,
We're working on a schedule so that we might have 2, might have 3. So they might look like this more often.
we're playing it by ear.
Yay, Jen.
Switch it up.
Yay.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Yay.